acceptance, connection, transcendence. Welcome to the Seeker's Quest podcast with your host, Veda, Chaitanya Charan, and Radha Priti. Welcome back to the Seeker's Quest podcast. It's been a while since we've been here together, so I'm so happy to have the team back. Cece's in Australia. How are you, Cece?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Krishna's mercy. Just came to Sydney yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Nice place here.
Is it warm there right now?
It's morning is cold, but daytime it's pleasant.
Oh, nice. So kind of similar to here in the US. And Veda, you just got back from your big European tour, right? You have like a one-day turnaround before you have to leave town again. Yeah? How are you, Veda?
Something of that nature. It was a little hectic European journey. Very fascinating groups of people in different countries. A lot of adventure and spiritual adventure and fun. And I'm really happy to be back.
Hearing your voice without seeing you is definitely not adventure or fun. Maybe you can just tell us.
Well, the reason I'm not on video is because my eye is going through some karmic purificatory phase, which means I'm currently have a swollen eye and have some medication on it. And I would not want people to see the more ugly version of the material body. Material body is already not that great, but an uglier version of that. I don't want to put people through the pain and torture of having to look at this.
I feel like if I hadn't laughed so hard at you when you first came on, we might have got to see you.
You are forcing us to follow the Bhakti tradition. Bhakti tradition says that saints are to be heard and not seen.
Maybe like a Mayavadi, invisible.
Well, we're glad you're here. Nevertheless, we're glad you still came. So thank you, Veda. Today,
how are you doing, Radha?
Oh, I'm great. We just did that Bhagavad-gita podcast before this, and I love doing that Gita podcast. I'll tell you, I love just thinking about the Gita. We're talking about the soul right now, and it's so nice just like marinating in the qualities of the soul. So, yeah, I'm great. I'm inspired. I'm happy that you guys are back and we can all get together again. It's been a while.
Yeah, definitely. It's missed all of us together.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about how to move debris from our heart. And this topic was inspired by the Bhagavad-gita verse 223, which we did a couple sessions ago. Maybe yesterday that one aired on the Bhagavad-gita podcast. But the quote that CC wrote in reference to this verse is life storms can't be stopped, but they can be channeled to sweep away the debris around the soul. So, yeah. Do you want to take us into it from there, Cece?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So life storms can refer to the many ways in which our normal life can get disrupted or even devastated. In general, the world is a place of dualities. There is happiness, there's distress. There can be honor, dishonor, heat, cold, wealth, poverty, health, sickness. Many of these can be dualities. Some dualities come more frequently than others. So when especially when the distresses come, that's when we find it especially stormy. and we feel as if we may get swept away by a storm. But the Gita's spiritual knowledge helps us see that those storms are not actually going to affect us as spiritual beings. And so generally, if we consider a storm, often in the middle of the storm, there is called the eye of the storm. And that is the place of complete calmness. While everywhere around it there's turbulence, there's calmness over there. So spiritual knowledge can help us get to the eye of the storm. Mm. And when we get to the eye of the storm, then we can stay undisturbed. And not only can we stay undisturbed, but if consider this is who we are, or more precisely, who we think we are. And this is at the core, as soul, that's who we are. So in the space around the soul, we could say this is our gross body, the physical body, and we often identify ourselves based on our body and the roles that we have. And those identifications are present in the subtle body. So this subtle body can be filled with much debris. Now, broadly speaking, the subtle body, we could say, is divided into two parts. There is the mind. Okay, let me. Mind and intelligence. And both of these could have some contaminations, some impurities within us. So that is what we are considering as the debris of the soul, debris around the soul. And life storms, either they can sweep us away or they can sweep what is around us away. As the debris around the soul is the impurities that are present in the mind and the intelligence. Now, let's make one more point and then we can go for reflection. So in the mind, basically there are desires. And especially you can say specific cravings. Unhealthy cravings, these are the impurities. And then in the intelligence, there are doubts. And those doubts are a part of a broader set, you can say, conceptions. So the unhealthy cravings, the unwise or incorrect, the untrue conceptions, those are the impurities within us. And those can be swept away by the storms of life. That's what we'll discuss how that happens. Yeah.
So it's like the soul, it gets filtered through the mind and the intelligence. And if the mind and intelligence is dirty, then that shows up. So when we are shaken in our life, if we can see it as an opportunity to kind of get to the root of what's shaking us and maybe clean it up a little bit, in that way, the filter, we're cleaning up the filter of which the soul comes through. Like when Arjuna was on the battlefield and he was lamenting for all of his family members that he was going to have to fight against, and Krishna comes and says, "Look, you're lamenting for their bodies, but their real identities are their soul." So it was like the compassion and love that he had was from the soul, but it was going through the filter of the mind and intelligence, which was so fixated on the bodily conception that he couldn't see past that. Like that.
Yes. A very nice example. Compassion toward opponents, it was, you could say, misdirected or restricted. Misdirected and restricted to their bodies alone. And that was the impurity. Good example. Thank you.
What do you
Veda.
think? Yeah.
Can we go up on the debris one more time? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking how this is so deep in terms of the philosophical and the emotional depth of this. How there's so much debris in our lives, and we continue to accumulate more and more debris. And the cause of debris is the result of having tremendous amount of debris in our lives is causing us to not be situated in our true essential self, in our spiritual self, because it's just covered with debris. Who wants to be in that place? And even the divine being, to leave the divine being in that space of debris is not that nice. And even this affects on the level of our relationships, when we have all this unhealthy cravings and desires and doubts and untrue conceptions. Who would want to be in such a person's life when we have such a huge accumulation of all of this? So this debris is not just causing us to, it's not just an impediment in our spiritual life, but it is an impediment in life as a whole. It is not just isolating, but it is also suffocating. And it is also, it's also a place where no one wants to be. No one wants to be covered in garbage. Everybody wants a clean place to make their home. So if we are looking for relationships and our heart and mind and intelligence is covered in debris, then it's hard to have genuine, authentic relationships. So this is a very deep topic. I just was thinking as you were talking about it.
Yes, very true. It's basically that impurities, they isolate us not just from people, not just from God. They actually isolate us even from ourselves, because we don't perceive who we really are. And sometimes because of the impurities, we may do something, and for example, we may get angry and yell at someone, or we may just we might just indulge in some very harmful behavior, and then later on we say, that's not me. That's not, at least that's not the person I thought I was, or that's certainly not the person I want to be. So yes, this impurities are very important to the role that they play within us, are important. Now in today's, you could say, secular and sanitized world, we may not like to use the word impurities, because that sounds religious, that sounds somewhat almost, what is it, puritanical. But we all have the idea of toxic behaviors, toxic emotions, toxic ideas. So, toxic thoughts. And we do want to keep away from those. So we could say in this culture, we might use the word toxic, but impurities are in themselves toxic ultimately. So That idea is not alien in today's culture of self-help and personal growth also.
Yeah, though, it doesn't always have to be like super toxic things that come up. Sometimes it can just be like things that you notice within yourself that you need to work on that are maybe more subtle, right? Like in spiritual life, we oftentimes as devotees, especially, we get into like sadhana. What's your sadhana? How many rounds are you chanting? And it's like, I'm a huge advocate of sadhana. I love sadhana. But sometimes this element of like being able to work with other devotees together, and what that brings up for you in the process is also like super important to recognize and to use, like we're saying, as these opportunities to kind of notice your sticking points within yourself and have the opportunity to kind of see them and correct them. Right. Like I was working with a devotee today and we were on a phone call, and this particular devotee is always so considerate of everybody's feelings, sometimes to the point where like I feel like the call is done in 30 minutes, but he's like asking everybody about their feelings for like the next 30 minutes. And I get so impatient. I'm like, all right, I got to go. I can't listen to this anymore. And then it gave me the opportunity for myself to be like, okay, why does this bother me? Like, what is coming up? It's like, he's trying to do something nice and I just like can't even tolerate it. So it's like, it's not like I'm toxic, but it's like, okay, maybe there's something there that I need to work on, that if I could be a more patient and loving person, generally speaking, I, could grow in my spiritual life. And that's really what it's all about, right? Like you could sit on the couch and chant all day, but if you can't tolerate a phone call like that, I don't know, maybe time to kind of work on something, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's why it's a very good point. Thank you for sharing that. Mm, I also have become aware that I'm a very short-tempered person, I have a short temper, but I don't become aware of it because I have a short temper. That means I get angry for a few moments, and after that, even when I get angry, I'm not screaming at people. I just speak maybe a little louder tone, maybe a little stronger words, and it just goes off. And I forget it, but the other person doesn't forget it. So that the other people notice it. So I've also realized that sometimes these things come up. They may not be very damaging, they may not be devastating, but they are concerning. That's why I was here. Mm, when you talk about impurities, I was talking about toxic as like the lower end of the spectrum.
Okay.
So here you could have impurities could go over a spectrum. They could just be distracting. Now here they could be devastating others. This is what I would call as toxic. This is a different section. Now in between, there could be something which is disturbing, something could be distressing, something could be degrading. Something could be discouraging. Not necessarily, it could be discouraging, could be anywhere among these, demoralizing, whatever. So you could have a spectrum. So all these could be called as impurities. We could say impurities are broadly, they make us, okay, let me write it over here separately. What impurities do is they basically shrink us. They make us suboptimal versions of ourselves, at the very least. Now, they could also make us caricatures of ourselves. They could make us completely perverted versions of ourselves. But they lead to, if there is a flashlight, and that flashlight is meant to, okay, this is really a terrible drawing. If I have a flashlight over here, now around the flashlight, if I have a film, now the covering, the film covering the flashlight. Now, what might it do? Well, it could do many things. It could completely block the flashlight. It could impede the flashlight slightly. So it's a range. So impede slightly. So because of that, some level it's not clear seeing, but here block totally. So impurities are like that. They can affect us to various degrees. And generally, it is only when that obstacle, it's not always that impediment becomes evident to us. Maybe I think, I'm a sweet person, but then I meet with somebody who is much kinder, much more polite, much more considerate, and then I realize, hey, I don't behave like that. That maybe there's room for me to improve. So sometimes it may be associated with others that I realize it. But overall, it's important to recognize that we all have impurities which are preventing us from being the best version of ourselves.
Veda, where are you on this scale? Where are your impurities? Are they blocked totally or just distracting?
Oh, I have to give you a full list. It's different. There must be more. I think the range is very big, but I haven't been able to fully detect where I fit into that spectrum. I definitely have anarthas. Those impurities are definitely there. I don't know how many lifetimes of impurities I'm carrying. So,
how do you realize them?
It's a tough question.
Yeah, I think we all are carrying lifetimes of impurities. In one sense, we are carrying them, they are covering us. So, similarly, when we carry things, if we are traveling, we carry luggage because that luggage is not going to be of some help to us. Imagine we are carrying luggage that was of no help to us.
But I've realized one thing does. Sorry, go ahead, Ceci.
No, so I'm just saying that then we would want to shed it immediately.
Yeah.
But what happens is that for quite some time, we may not realize that the impurities are a burden. And even if we realize them that they're a burden, sometimes they stick to us, they hold on to us. So why do we carry them? The reasons can range from over the spectrum. Because we are ignorant of them. Ignorant means their existence or their effect, how they're having a negative effect on us. We're ignorant of that. That's why we're carrying them. Or they are stuck to us. We understand it's a problem, but still we can't give it up. So it could be over that range. Yes, anyway, go on, Veda, please.
I was just saying, when we were talking about this topic, carrying the impurities, I was thinking how when we do our sadhana, we get a very clear image of our impurities. It opens up, it's like a little flashlight that comes on as you're showing. So we are able to see the impurities. And I almost feel like when I do my sadhana, I feel like I'm on a train. I'm on a train and I'm carrying the bags, all those impurities on my shoulder, thinking that I'm making the weight on the train a little lighter. So this is what I have realized in my sadhana.
What makes us feel that we are making the weight on the train lighter? Means, are you saying that, giving that as a general
The
example of the
nature,
misconception?
no, the nature of the world is going to do, the train is going to go in a destination. We are all born with a certain karma, whether we like it or not. Life is going to be, our destiny is going to go on, you know? And it is just going to go on. We just, as long as we live and breathe, the train is moving. But to carry those impurities so deeply in our psyche every day, to be conscious of them, carrying these impurities, and thinking that, somehow I'm going to take the weight off of this train by me carrying these impurities. It doesn't work. You don't lower the weight on the train by carrying those bags on your back, but rather, by understanding the laws of karma through the practice of sadhana, I'm like, you know what? Karmic, everything, whatever is going to happen to me is going to happen. That's a given. How can I practice my life to not be attached to all these impurities? This is what sadhana gives me. Ability to not carry the weight on my shoulders and just put it down on the train and just travel on the train, not having to hold it on my shoulders thinking that it's going to be lighter. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense to you guys?
Yeah, I would just like to modify. It's a beautiful metaphor. Maybe I would like to modify it a little bit.
Please
It's
modify.
like when we are carrying the burden, it's not just we are thinking we are making the train lighter. I think it is, we often think I am making the train move by carrying this burden.
That's also true, yes.
So it's that,
It's because of me. Me carrying
yeah,
this bag on my shoulders, the train is moving faster.
Or like sometimes impurities that we accumulate throughout our life because they served us at one time, like certain defense mechanisms or ways of being that we needed to be at one time for a certain situation or relationship, but we don't really need to be anymore, but we're still holding on to it or holding on to that conception or that belief about ourselves in it. Right. So we think that we have to
yeah,
be like that or that we need that to make the train move. But the reality is, if we just shut it, the train would move so much faster.
how would the train move faster?
Because it would, well, I mean, for all purposes of the analogy, it probably wouldn't because it's relatively, let's just
Okay.
say it's a really heavy bag, like it's massive. It fills up the
Yeah.
whole train.
Okay.
This isn't a
I get what
relative.
you're saying. That I get what you're saying is that at least it's like we are carrying a burden and we are thinking this is helping me move faster. But I put down the burden, at least I will be able to move faster. So, and I'll be able to do, maybe I can, if I have a big back on, even if I'm driving the train and I have a huge backpack on my back and I'm driving the train, then the backpack is going to drain some of my energy. And I think because of the backpack, I am able to drive the train. Because of the backpack, the train is moving. Well, no, drop the backpack, maybe the train will move faster. If it's not a backpack, okay, I think we can just play around with this metaphor further. Say if we are riding a bike, hmm, and it's with a heavy backpack. Now, I'm thinking that the bike is going smoothly because I have this heavy backpack. But no, the bike is going smoothly because I'm driving the bike. I'm pedaling it, say. But so the movement is happening. Is it because of the backpack? That's completely wrong. So it's happening because of the pedaling. So sometimes when life storms come and we have to protect certain things, but sometimes we may be protecting things that don't need to be protected. In fact, those storms, so if I'm just driving normally, and then whether your metaphor has really activated my imagination now. So if you're driving, if you're, well, how do I draw a bike?
I was
Well, I'll make
waiting
you
for
laugh.
this. I was excited for it, Susie.
Okay. That's some kind of bike. Okay. It looks more like a, what?
Sitting on a pile of his bag. He's sitting on his bag in the train, is what I said.
You might need some
Very
wheels
good.
on that bike, Susie. Have you ridden a bike before?
Anyway, okay. This is not a bike, but whatever. Just use your imagination. So now, if you say that same thing, we are moving, and I have the key point I wanted to show you here is a big backpack on my back. So now, when I'm going downhill or I'm going straight, I may not realize how much the backpack is burdening me. But when I start going upwards, so okay, this is something else only.
Now it looks like he's carrying a barbell.
Okay, okay. So then when I start going up, at least at that time, I start realizing this is a burden. Maybe I should just shed it away. Maybe I should throw it away, shed it. So sometimes the storms make us realize how much of a burden something is. And I start thinking, do I need to carry it? So in that sense, it's good.
Yeah, like we don't sometimes notice it when we're on flat ground, but when we start trying to move it, we realize what a burden it is.
Oh, that's what sadhana is. Sadhana is moving upstream, and this is
That's a good example.
This is what sadhana is, and that's when you realize that the backpack is a little too heavy, and you need to let it go.
Because you realize that it's not serving you in your relationship with the divine.
Right.
Yeah. See, if you see when we are doing sadhana, that's the time when our mind starts acting out quite a bit. Now, it can be distracting us frequently throughout the day also, but generally, when we have some responsibilities to do, we are talking with some people, at least because of we want to look good in people's eyes. In normal responsibilities, normal situations, our mind is somewhat restrained by the ego, restrained by whatever reasons. That time also it can go wild, but at least somewhat restrained. But when we are doing sadhana at that time, literally the mind has nowhere else to go except focus on the ultimate reality. And when it doesn't want to focus on the ultimate reality, then it just creates such resistance, such turbulence. And then that's when we see how much the mind is an obstacle. So that how the mind does not want to focus on that ultimate reality. So in that sense, the sadhana does help us come, if not face to face with God, the ultimate reality, but at least it brings us face to face with our own mind. Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Any comments?
This is why it's nice to do sadhana in the morning, right? Before you start your day and the mind starts to get into other things. It's like just putting it right in there first. You maybe have a better shot of it not running away.
Yeah, there's so much emphasis of sadhana in the morning, as you say, Radha. It's so vital, because if you can drop those backpack early in the morning before you start climbing up the mountain,
Mm.
and then throughout the day there's no weight on you. So, you're good. You sail through the day like with such ease. And that's why I know, and I just finished the retreat in Europe, in different countries. My biggest emphasis was how important it is to have an early morning sadhana. How there should be no compromise on that one. Everything you can compromise, there should be no compromise on the sadhana, because that is when you take the burden off. And you can be weightless all throughout the day. Otherwise, you're carrying this heavy weight around. But why? What is the need? So weightless life is what sadhana is all about. Emotionally and energetically, you feel very light.
I think also, in addition to sadhana, like having friends that lift you up or that remind you of like what's really important. When I talked to you today, Veda, I talked to Veda like in the middle of the day after I had like multiple meetings with various people, and I was impatient and annoyed. I'm just like venting to Veda, and Veda just like goes into his, I don't know. He's like, Veda's just like a little Krishna conscious.
I don't know.
Everything he says, he's like spewing out verses, and it's like at the end, I'm like, what was I even thinking about before? It was like so silly and like just irrelevant.
I just told her that she was in Maya, Sissy.
That's what he told me. He yelled at me until I was scared. No, it was beautiful. He just shared some realizations. I think all he did was share realizations of his own from his experiences in Europe, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, I'm like just way too consumed in my material conceptions.
You put this satsang association, CC. I have to share a small story though on this one.
Please.
Every year I go to India with a group of students. So this year I'll be taking about 45 students to Rishikesh, Vrindavan, Haridwar. And the theme of this retreat is Seva. It's the Seva Yatra. Everywhere we go, we're going to do service. So first time I went to Rishikesh, I was staying in one of the ashrams there. And the guy who was running the ashram, I was sitting with him trying to understand, why do all these white people come to Rishikesh? And thousands and thousands of them, and I don't see any sadhus. I don't see all the saintly people. Where are they? It's just, a city for white people to, speculate what yoga is, That's what I was thinking when I first went to Rishikesh recently, after a very long time. And one of the senior ashramites, he mentioned to me, he said, Veda, you will not find any sages here in Rishikesh. Rishikesh, the energy of Rishikesh is the sincerity of the seekers trying to remove their impurities. And I was like, what? He said, yes, this place is sacred because all the seekers are sincerely trying to remove their impurities. And this is why they all come. And when everybody comes in this with that mood of removing the impurities from their lives, it has become satsang, and that's why this place is so energetic. I was like, what? So he kind of like, shifted my perspective, because I was just thinking there's like thousands of just people from all over the world just sincerely seeking to be free from pain and suffering and remove their impurities.
Mm.
And that creates the Sangha, and that energy is the sadhana energy. And that's the key he mentioned to me. I was like, oh, okay. No more will I judge.
Mm.
So yeah, impurities are something that we have to work on, but it helps to be in this sacred space as well, in the association of other sincere holy seekers.
Mhm. Yeah, it's when we talk about satsang, now what is it exactly? That's a good question. It could be the association of you need a great seer. Generally, that's the understanding. And if the seer is there, definitely that's good. But if the seekers come together, that itself creates an energy. And the energy can be infectious.
Mm.
So, because we all are affected by those around us, their energies are either pulling us upwards, say, towards spiritual reality, or they're pulling us downward towards material and selfish and sensual reality. So, in some ways, it's a curious phenomena that somebody who's alcoholic and is trying to recover from alcoholism. I have friends who are Alcoholics Anonymous. In that association, you could say somebody who has never drunk alcohol is pure, but that person may not. That person may be so different from all the alcoholics that that person can't relate with us. We can't relate with them. Or a person who has completely overcome alcoholism long ago, and for decades that person has been completely dry. When that person goes to a meeting, that person may not be able to relate with people, and those people may not be able to relate with them. So, in that sense, sometimes association of people who are close to us, who are similar to us, can be more beneficial. And that doesn't mean that people who are way ahead of us. That is not important. Both are there, but it depends on context. Association we talk about, there are association of seers, and you could say there are fellow seekers. So both bring their own benefit. In one sense, seers, it's like they show us the mountaintop peak. Okay, this is what purity, this is what saintliness looks like. Where the fellow seekers, they help us in you could say the thrills and fears of trekking of the next step. They help us overcome that. Okay, this person is also afraid, but still this person is going up that step. So let me also go up that step. So in one sense, these are for the next steps. This is very helpful for the immediate next steps. And for the distant goal. We don't want to just keep taking the immediate steps. We also need to see the distant goal. So that also it's helpful. The different kinds of associations serve different purposes.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense that both are important.
So CC, you wanna give us the conclusion, because 1 hour is over.
Sure. So we talked about today how to withstand life's storms. So when those storms come, so storms in one sense, what is the effect? They sweep us away, we get devastated or sweep the debris around us away. That is what we would like happen. So we discussed, our whole session was how to ensure the second happens. In that connection, we discussed what is the debris. The debris is primarily present in the subtle body. In the mind, there are cravings. In the intelligence, there are conceptions, misconceptions primarily. So what do these do? Why are they called as debris? Technically, the word uses impurities. The impurities can have a range of influence for us. They can be just distracting, or they can be devastating. But at the very least, they do lead us to becoming a suboptimal version of ourselves. And then within that, okay, what did I do? Okay. Then we discussed about sadhana and how sadhana helps us in terms of it helps us come face to face. It helps us see impurities as burdens to be shed. Otherwise, we may not realize that they're burdens. So we discuss elaborately the metaphor of going in a train or walking or biking uphill while carrying a burden. So sadhana helps us to realize that the impurities are burdens, and thus we can set them up. And then lastly, we talked about satsang. So what satsang does is for us, good association also helps us in different ways at different levels. And we discussed two levels. The seers can help us. It's more like distant inspiration, and seekers can give us immediate inspiration. Both can inspire us and help us go along that journey.
Mm.
Did I leave out any major points?
Beautiful.
It's great. I'm inspired for sadhana and satsang.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Radha Priti. Thank you all very much.
Oh.
Namaste, everyone.